Hi, my name is Lydia O'Connor and I am a Reiki master and a mental health coach. And I just wanted to first talk about my story and what got me to this point where I'm teaching Reiki to other mothers. So I was a struggling mother. I first became a mother 3.5 years ago to my beautiful boy. And things were not perfect, believe it or not. I had a different idea of what motherhood would be than what it was. I knew it was going to be hard, but I didn't realize that I was going to have such a hard time with my son. My son was going to have such a hard time. So what happened was when I had my son, everything was perfect for the first 6 weeks. He was a quiet baby, slept like an angel. I was up through the night, but that's normal for a newborn to be up so much. So I was tired, but I was dealing with it. He was sleeping a lot through the day, so I managed to rest and, just do normal things. I thought, God, this is really easy. Motherhood's really easy, And I remember going to some of the mothers groups going, my baby, he's just such a good sleeper. I just thought I had such a really good baby. And then after six weeks, things started to change. I noticed that he wasn't sleeping as much anymore. He cried after every milk feed, and he was he seemed to be quite in a lot of pain after milk feeds. And I just remember talking to other people about it, and they're like, oh no, it's normal at this age for babies to cry. And I'm like, okay. So, because, being a new mum, I had no idea. So I just continued on, and, it got to a few weeks later and it just seemed to be a little bit worse. And so I went to a pediatrician and they said, oh, it could be wind, it could be reflux, but no, let's try the wind first. So they gave me some Infocol drops to put in his formula at night or in the day, and to see if it was wind. And it didn't really make much of a difference at all. And at this stage, I was literally walking around with a crying baby 24/7. Like he would cry all the time. He was never happy. He was always miserable. And I tried to book in to see this pediatrician again. And, it's a 6-week wait, and I couldn't get back in to see her for 6 weeks. And I'm like, how am I going to survive for another 6 weeks with the way he was? And this was at about 8 weeks, and I've dealt with for a couple of weeks, and I started to not go out as much. I started to resent the other mothers that I used to go out in mothers group with, because they all seemed to be having a great time. Motherhood's great, and it's all go for pram walks and all that sort of stuff that you should be doing as a mum, as a new mum. And I wasn't enjoying it one bit. And so I struggled, and then it got to about 10 weeks, and at this stage I hadn't slept in 10 weeks. I literally had I didn't have a block of sleep for more than 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours at a time, and I was probably averaging about 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night, but it was intermittent throughout the night. When the baby would wake up, I'd feed him, and then it takes a while to get back to sleep. And so I was exhausted. I was absolutely exhausted. I wasn't getting any sleep in the day because he wasn't sleeping in the day either. He was so upset and uncomfortable that he wasn't able to sleep. And I just remember one night, it was 1 a.m, and I just put him back to sleep. He was asleep. I could not sleep to save my life, and I just started crying and bawling my eyes out. I just couldn't do it anymore. I literally had given up at that moment. I was like, I'm done. I'm ready just to walk out. So my husband woke up. He knew things were really hard, and he didn't really know how to help me. And he was up, and I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do. So in the morning, what happened was, I went to the doctors and I spoke about how I was feeling, and they put me on antidepressants. They diagnosed me with postpartum depression and even post-traumatic stress disorder as well, because of the screaming. The baby was screaming so much, so they said I had a bit of trauma from that as well. And that's why I couldn't sleep at night. It was the anxiety and the panic that I was feeling was stopping me from sleeping. And so then I went and saw a counsellor, and being a counsellor myself, I know all this stuff. But when you're a mum, I had a huge shock, and everything that I used to do before motherhood, I stopped completely. So I'm a Reiki master too, and I used to do Reiki healings on myself every day, and I used to love it. And I stopped all of that when I became a mum, because my son just took over my whole world, and that's the way it should be as a new mum, But it got to a point where I needed to take back some of myself. I needed to be me again. So what happened then was I then decided, and this is talked with the counsellor, I decided that I should do some more self-care techniques again. So I decided to do Reiki again, and I started doing a 5-minute self-healing technique on myself just before I'd go to bed. And if you've ever felt Reiki is a beautiful energy, and it makes you feel so relaxed and calm. The only way I can describe it is if you have a nice hot bath and you're all relaxed, your muscles all relaxed, and you just slip into bed and you tuck yourself into your nice doona and you just drift off to sleep. And that is how Reiki feels. And I used to do that every night before I go to sleep, and it helped me to drift off to sleep, which I was finding trouble with. It also helped me with my stress and anxiety. But things didn't just change over, it didn't just change, as soon as I did those things. It did take a little bit of time. And, I found a better pediatrician who actually put my son on medication, and we changed the formula, but it was testing. We had to test it and find out what worked and what didn't work. So, he gradually got better over time, and I gradually got better over time. But it was hard, and it was probably the hardest time of my life. I don't think I've ever experienced that kind of feelings before, the trauma and the mental issues that I experienced, I've never experienced before. And, after a while, I realised that a lot of the other mothers in my mother's group, which I thought had perfect lives and were, just as having a great time, I realised when I spoke up about how I was feeling, a lot of them were saying, they were experiencing a similar thing too. So it actually made me realise that, you look around and you see everyone and they look like they've got the perfect life, or they've got motherhood down pat, but they don't. And it made me realise that there are a lot of struggling mums out there. And we struggle in silence. We don't talk up and we don't talk to other mums. And it's really sad. So when I had my second child, and I used Reiki for the whole time I was pregnant and for the whole time I was with my daughter. And I had, even though she wasn't as bad as my first son, but there were tough times. There was a lot of sleep deprivation in the beginning. And so, I had similar things happen with my other baby, but my energy, my emotions, and my mental well-being were so much better. And the only thing that I consistently did was Reiki. I didn't want to be on antidepressants, and I didn't want to see a counsellor for long term. I wanted to be able to do these things myself and have my own self-care routine, which didn't rely on anyone else. And I gave up. I stopped the antidepressants after 6 weeks, and I focused on my own self-care, and I've never gone back. And it was amazing to be able to take control of my well-being and my mental well-being, and become the mum that I want to be. And so my passion now is to help other people other mothers who are struggling. And it doesn't need to be the first year of motherhood. You may have had a traumatic birth, which you still haven't healed properly, or it could be that you've had postpartum depression for a few years, or it could be that you've got 4 kids and it's the 5th kid that that seems to have triggered something in you, and you're not as confident as a mum anymore. And I am so passionate about helping those mothers to use Reiki to understand and to grow as a person, and to have an energy around them that is love and happiness and joy, rather than depression, anxiety, and stress. It's 5 minutes a day, and I can't thank Reiki enough for what it's done for me, and I want to teach other people how to do this. So that's my story, and I hope that this has given you some hope and some inspiration to do similar things as what I've done. And if you want to learn more about my course, please click on the link that is below this video and check it out. And I've made it awesomely cheap, and I've made it very quick and simple and easy to learn, so that as a mother, as I know, you don't have a lot of time. And so it's a beautiful gift that I think everyone should have. So please check it out.